Hey guys, Peter here, welcome back. I am bringing you another Brawlmachine battle report. This time it's against my Goreshade for Shadows of the Retribution against Archie's Kozlov1 Legion of Steel. So Archie is one of the what do you call that? Top players, top sharks in the Warmachine Philippines community. So I managed to squeeze a game with him the other night, and it was pretty quick. It's the first time I'm playing with Clock again after 3 years of a Warmachine hiatus. So enough about intros. I'm going to move on and explain the lists. So as I mentioned, we are bringing Goreshade versus Kozlov in Shadows of the Retribution and Legion of Steel lists, respectively. I'll start off with my list. I am running Goreshade 4 with a Chimera and Phoenix battle group for the Arc nodes. I am trying out if Junior Warcasters are effective in Brawlmachine, so I brought out Elara 1 with a Griffin in her battle group, a minimum squad of Mage Hunter Infiltrators, and a Spears of Scyrah. So my strategy here was to use Goreshade's ability and respawn the Spears of Scyrah or the Mage Hunter Infiltrators as much as I can while camping the defending flag or defender side flag, and have Elara be the one to contest or claim the opposing flags. So, and then the two Arc nodes are there for me to spam out Hand of Ice or Goreshade's other spell, which is, let me check it. Don't worry, I'll bring out the cards in this battle report. So I was planning to bring out Goreshade's Hand of Ice and Light of Wrath. There's the spell to grant me give my opponent -2 defense or -2 armor. But in this matchup, the Light of Wrath wasn't really relevant as Khador Jax and Khador units in general really do not need any death debuffs. So for Archie's list, it's relatively a unique Khador list. He is bringing Kozlov1, a Berserker, a Kodiak, and a Marauder with a Greylord adjunct in his battle group. He is running an Ironfang Kovnik solo, a Captain Sofia Skirova solo, which I think is his free solo, a minimum unit of Ironfang Pikemen with the Officer and Standard. So Archie gave me a little background on his list. I hope he corrects me. I still haven't figured out how I'm going to get opposing player commentary when I do these battle reports, as I record my thoughts after. So either way, Archie's story, or rather Archie's explanation for his list is he plays Khador very differently, whereas commonly Khador goes with big heavy warjacks and decide to, out attrition everybody with big beat sticks. His list is geared more towards speed and reach. So he was telling me the 75 version list for his current Brawlmachine list has a 14-inch threat range, which to me is surprising for Khador, as I always automatically assume a 9 or 10-inch threat. No, wait, there's commonly speed 4, 3 inches charge, and then 1-inch reach. So yeah, that's a 8-inch threat rather. So hearing that he can go up to 14 is very different. So he's running this list more because of flavor, as he loves the Steel Legion. So, but even if this is a fluff list, he beat my ass relatively quick. So yeah, I am spoiling the ending right now, but please continue watching. So let's move on to the battlefield and the scenario. Alright, the table and scenario were randomly generated with War Table's randomization options. So we are running the Ignition Scenario 3 of the Brawlmachine from the Brawlmachine version 1.0 scenario list. And the table is as follows. So we have a circle zone in right dead center with 3 flags in a triangular orientation. Two flags are on the left-hand side of the screen with one lone flag right between them on the opposite end. For terrain, we have three forests, two on the southern half of the board, one on the top half of the board, two houses on the circle zone, a water patch, difficult terrain patch, a barbed wire but we treated it as a regular wall, a trench, and a cloud. So all rules are as is, like the blocks line of sight, grants cover, difficult terrain, everything is basic. So let's move on to deployment. And turn 1 in deployment. So for deployment, we roll off and I win the roll off. I choose to play first with Archie picking bottom for his deployment zone. This forces me to go up. And with all of my Pathfinder models, it doesn't really matter to me either way. I ignore most of the terrain anyway. So yeah, with this I deploy in my usual fashion with my fastest models on the wings of the flank, Goreshade at the center, protected by the Phoenix, and then at the far end of the formation I have Elara and the Phoenix along with the Chimera. Archie deploys in a similar fashion with his Ironfang Pikemen deployed to the right end of his flank, supported by the Kodiak. At the center, we have his caster Kozlov and Sophia. To his left, he has the Berserker and Marauder with the Ironfang Kobnik ending the formation. So I begin with my turn 1, and it's relatively quick. I allocate 0 focus to all of my jacks and just power up for 1, keeping Goreshade at 7 focus. I then activate the Mage Hunter Infiltrators and do a quick run right into the pool. I ignore difficult terrain thanks to Pathfinder, so I just put them there for a relatively open field so that I can run or charge anything that they can relatively block. Next up, I activate the Griffin. It's a quick run to the right-hand side flag. Hopefully, I can charge anything that comes too close. I then activate Elara, cast Speed of Death, and then declare a charge towards one of the Ironfang Pikemen to maximize movement, and that pretty much ends her activation. Here, I activate the Chimera, or Chimera, I don't know how you want to pronounce it. Either way, I realized I forgot one of the major abilities that I needed from the Chimera and Elara, which is the Apparition. I could have had an extra 2 inches of movement earlier if I had remembered that. So either way, I just run it up the field to try and support the Griffin and Elara on this flank. I then activate the Phoenix and run it up the board close to the house. And then here's when I realize I should have activated the Spears of Scyrah first, but I already committed. So I'll explain why I think this was a wrong move when I tell you about the Spears of Scyrah. You see, I realized late in my activation that the Spears of Scyrah had reposition 3. So I could have actually had an additional 3 inches of movement. No, I'm sorry. I could have put them in front of the Phoenix. I didn't need the Phoenix that close this turn. I should have actually planned for the Scyrah the Spears of Scyrah being able to charge or at least block anything that Archie would have put in front of them. I would have used the Phoenix, moved it, and then used Hand of Ice, reduce armor, probably deal a lot of damage with the Spears of Scyrah on the charge with their Weapon Master. But here, I blocked them up like an idiot. So after that, my next activation is I activate Goreshade for last, and this is when I realized that it's very likely that the Chimera will be out of my control range. So I'm trying to figure out where to put him. Luckily, I remembered Chimera has apparitions, so I can move Goreshade as close as I can so that I can apparition before the Chimera powers up. So here I look for where that is. I put him behind the Mage Hunter Infiltrators and end my turn. Archie begins his turn by powering up all of his jacks and keeping the rest of the focus on Kozlov, and then activates the Berserker and runs it to the board right behind the house, making it difficult for me to charge him with my Phoenix, and he probably knows that my Mage Hunter Infiltrators will do very little damage to it as it's a heavy Warjack with arm 18, and he has several buffs to pump up its defense, its armor. Next, Archie follows up with the Marauder and runs it up the board in a parallel alignment to the Berserker right behind the house, again making it difficult for me to charge him with my Phoenix. Next up, he activates the Kodiak and is thinking about where he'll be putting the Kodiak. I think he decides to put it outside of the circle zone and close to the forest so that my Mage Hunter Infiltrators or the Spears of Scyrah wouldn't be able to reach it. The Phoenix has an impossible charge. I don't think the Phoenix sees him from this angle. Archie activates Kozlov, casts Fury on the Berserker, moves him up the board, and casts Chosen Ground. He then activates the Ironfang Pikemen and advances them up the board, pretty close to the Kodiak, and then doesn't break away from base to base so that he can activate Shield Wall formation. I wasn't really sure why he was doing that, as at this point I don't really have a lot of chargers to charge him with. But I think it paid off in the end as he managed to pull back his forces enough that he didn't lose any if he had placed them in the wrong position. Archie then activates the, Ironfang Cognic, and is thinking about whether he wants to put it on the right-hand flank or the left-hand flank. I think he's trying to figure out where he can be placed best to support his entire army. So he finally decides to do so and ends the activation on the left-hand side of the board closer to his defending flag. Next up, he moves the Greylord Adjunct right into the center of his formation. I don't really know the spells of the Greylord Adjunct at this point and didn't really realize why he was doing this. I think it only came up in the following turn. The Greylord Adjunct's abilities only came up in the following turn. His final activation is the Skirova Solo. I don't know how to pronounce her full name, so I do know that she's the one that grants his solo's counter charge. So Archie moves her up to get into command, to get the Ironfang Cognic in command range. So I'm not really sure what else Archie was planning for her at this turn, but he ends his turn with this last activation. So my turn starts, and I allocate one focus to. I power up all my jacks with one focus and keep 7 on Goreshade. I know the Chimera is out of control at this point, but I use Apparition to put it back into the control range. So my first activation is the Phoenix. So Archie placed all of his jacks in a way that they would either benefit from cover or I don't have a clear line of sight. So I wanted to arc note some spells from this point, but as mentioned, there are no good targets. So I just decide to walk up the Phoenix into the center of the circle zone and try and pick a target. The Berserker having that concealment bubble on him, that from the Greylord Adjunct, made it difficult for me to shoot him because the Phoenix has a rat of 5 with cover and concealment. The Berserker would have had a defense of 15 if I'm not mistaken. So I opted to shoot the Kodiak with the Phoenix's Halo Cannon. So I deal 9 points of damage to the Kodiak from the Phoenix's gun, and then I activate Alara's Griffin and declare a charge onto the Kodiak. I deal a fair bit of damage even with that high armor. I think I take off under 5 points of damage onto the Kodiak with the Griffin. So I then activate the Chimera, and I've been using it very terribly in this game. So I've been thinking about whether I use it to contest the circle zone or protect the flag, but I realize now that I'm doing this commentary post-game, it didn't do anything. Doing either of those things just wasted my time, right? And a waste of 8 points effectively. So I finally decide to end the activation when I put the Chimera onto the flag, and then I activate Alara and run her up to claim the flag, expecting that she would survive with her Def 15 on the next turn, so that I would have scored 2 points if Archie didn't go for the flag. Next up, I activate Goreshade and pop his feet, thinking that Archie might be able to kill at least 6 or maybe 5 or 6 of the Mage Hunter infiltrators and maybe some of the Spheres of Scyrah to maximize my focus output. However, again, looking back after the game, as I do this commentary, I realize that I've not been playing Goreshade very well. Bad positioning, bad decisions all around. So either way, from this point, I think I cast a Hand of Ice Arc Noding from the Phoenix, targeting the Berserker, boosting to hit, but I still miss, wasting 3 focus at the end of the activation. I then activate the Mage Hunter infiltrators and declare a press forward order. I start off with number 4 and declare a charge onto the Berserker. I forgot that Sofia Skarova grants countercharge to his solos, and Archie activates the Ironfang Cognic and countercharges into the infiltrator, killing it instantly. We had a rules discussion, and I get the focus. I think the feat still triggers at this point. So after that, I follow through with the rest of the Mage Hunter infiltrators. I think 2 of them managed to reach the Berserker and deal a fair amount of damage even with their very low POW weapons. Here once again, I activate the Spheres of Scyrah, and I feel like I am barely utilizing their potential. So in this activation, I just move them up to contest or claim the circle zone. However, looking back, I think I could have placed them in a better position to be able to support either the right hand or the left hand side of the board much easier or in a better fashion. Also maximizing Goreshade's speed. If they die, I get the soul. I can revive one of them if any of them die. But here, looking at it, I'm underutilizing all of my units. So Archie's turn 2 is relatively quick for a turn 2 move. So he powers up all of his jacks, allocates 2 focus onto the Marauder and Kodiak, and begins his first activation with Sophia. So he moves her up right beside the Berserker behind the house and activates a spray ability. I forgot, I'll double check. I'll show it on the card right on the lower right hand of the screen. So either way, his spray manages to catch 4 of my Mage Hunter infiltrators, but their high defense only lets him kill the Unity. Archie activates Kozlov, casts Fury on the Berserker, moves him up the board right behind the Greylord Adjunct, not Skarova, sorry, I've been mistaking them all game. So either way, he tries and strike one of the Mage Hunter infiltrators, but he says there's no space to see them and proves his sportsmanship conduct with that. So his activation ends and moves on to his next unit. Next up, he activates the Ironfang Pikemen, and this is probably the first game-winning activation, or at least the first nail in my coffin. So he declares a multi-charge, rather than, for lack of a better term. So he charges 2 of the Pikemen into the Phoenix, 2 of the Pikemen into Alara, and then another 3 into the Griffin. So him, I was banking on Elara's high defense, but I didn't know that the Ironfang Pikemen had gang. So either way, I end up losing her, making the Griffin inert, and then he manages to just wail onto the Griffin, crippling its left arm, so I lose the shield. Uh, he doesn't kill it, but his Ironfang Pikemen still continue on to breaking down the cortex and right arm. So the last remaining three, I think, didn't do anything to the Phoenix. So that ends the Ironfang Pikemen's activation. So my turn 3 begins. I have no jacks to power up, so I have 7 focus on Goreshade, but with the feat from the previous turn, I get 2 soul tokens and they become 9 focus. I then activate Goreshade. I pretty much don't know what I'm going to do at this point. I know I have to kill the Kodiak and the Ironfang Pikeman at the center, but I am in the, what do you call that, water terrain, so I need to cast the spell that grants me Ghost Leap, and I would lose the flag if I did that. So I decided to stay there, use 3 focus, and revive one of the Mage Hunter infiltrators. I cast Hand of Ice onto the, what do you call that, Kodiak, trying to reduce his armor. I'm hoping that the Spears of Scyrah would be able to deal enough damage to either cripple or kill it. So that would leave me with only the Ironfang Pikeman to deal with, which I think is a mistake. I then stay there with Goreshade and try to camp 3 focus remaining, and try and survive. I was hoping that my high defense units would be able to survive. I then activate the newly replenished Mage Hunter infiltrators and declare press forward order. 2 of my units, 2 of the members are able to charge. The new unit leader charges the Berserker, and the remaining Mage Hunter charges the Ironfang Covenant. Thanks to Gang, I was able to kill both of them, even though I had the feat armor bonus to go through. I killed the Ironfang Covenant, and then the Mage Hunter Infiltrator unit leader deals, if I'm not mistaken, 3 damage to the Berserker. I activate the Chimera next, which at this point in time is pretty much wasted 8 points. So I think the best option I could use with him was either to block charge lanes or to deny deny Archie the flag, because I think his Skarova would be able to run up the board towards the flag and claim it for 2 points on his turn. So with that, I end its activation. I activate the Spears of Scyrah last and try and find the optimal charge distance to get the extra damage dice and declare all of my attacks onto the Kodiak. However, with his arm 20, even with Hand of Ice, and I deal relatively low damage. I was hoping that I'd kill the Kodiak, but that didn't pan out. I then reposition the spears in a manner that I don't really think was optimal. I was hoping to block a charge or get some free strikes onto the Kodiak if he attempted to charge Goreshade. I end my turn with that, passing on, getting 1 point from the flag, and then Archie still scoring 0 as he's not holding any objectives at this point. This is the final turn of the game, as we will see. So Archie starts off and allocates 2 focus to the Marauder, upkeeping Fury and Chosen Ground. He then activates the Marauder to charge the the Chimera, hits with both attacks, and then activates Combo Smite, knocking the Chimera down to 16 life and then knocking it down. He then activates the Ironfang Pikemen and declares a press forward order. He moves the rest of the Ironfangs into the center zone and then uses 3, if I'm not mistaken, 3 Ironfang to kill 2 of my Spears of Scyrah. He makes use of Gang to get past my Def 17, and then finally activates the, what do you call that, Kodiak, and kills the last remaining spear. Archie's last sets of activation is, first off, he activates Captain Sofia Skarova, runs her up to the middle flag, claiming that, and then activates Kozlov, moving him into position to strike all four of my mage hunters, but their high defense makes it difficult for him to kill them all in one strike. But he attacked by several attacks, boosts them, and manages to kill 3 of the Mage Hunter infiltrators, and then he finally sidesteps onto his home flag. His final activation is the Berserker, and with a single boosted attack, he manages to kill the last remaining Mage Hunter infiltrator. He ends his turn scoring 3 points for the zone and 2 flags, and 1 point for me, leaving us at 3-3. At this point, I concede the game, even though Archie has, I think, 1 minute and a half on his clock. I just have to end my turn. I'll score 1 point. Archie gets another 3, and then the following turn, he just has to end his activation. He ends the game with 9 points to my 5. So the clock isn't relevant at this point. And then, so yeah, I concede. I only have the Chimera left at the end of the game. So he could also use that to kill me, or just go up straight for a caster kill. And yep, that's the end of the game. Let's move on to my... Okay, so post-game thoughts. This was a pretty fun game. I just wanted to play with stuff I rarely use, mainly Goreshade. He was actually a gift from my wife back on our wedding, so I barely used him in real life, so I wanted to use him on War Table at least. So either way, I'm still figuring things out after a 3-year hiatus, and I'm also studying the meta for Brawlmachine. I wanted to see how well junior warcasters actually did, because back in 75 points when I was still active, Elara actually did a lot of work, especially clearing out infantry. But in here, when she died and the Griffin was inert, I realized that was effectively 18 points? No, 4 was a 12-point sink, a 12-point swing to Archie's favor. Yeah. So either way, I hope I can continue making battle reports. I'm adjusting, studying things, figuring things out as I go. I hope you can write down on the comments if you get this far what you'd like to see. Other games, I tried streaming the other day, but I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough to actually do a live commentary. So yeah, please write down whatever you think you'd like to see from me in the future, and hope you watch soon. Alright, bye-bye. See ya.